Hey guys, welcome to LA Love Creative, and today we're talking about should you upgrade to a cinema camera from a DSLR. If you haven't, make sure you hit the bell so you can stay notified when we post new videos. So I recently shot a fashion video for a client and we used the Canon C200. I love the image that comes out of the Canon C200. I've done a couple videos on talking about how I love Canon cinema cameras. I think the image that comes out of the Canon C200 when you're shooting RAW is just amazing. And the cinema camera that I ended up actually picking up is the Canon C70. I'm shooting on it right now. And so far, I think it's one of the best bang for your buck cameras to ever come out. Pretty much ever. I started thinking about, is a cinema camera a camera that every type of creator should actually upgrade to in their career? One of the things that I think a lot of times people want to upgrade to cinema cameras is, I think the major reason why I think is just convenience. I think having a cinema camera a lot of times can just make your workflow and your functionality of when you're using the ergonomics of your camera way better. Now, not every cinema camera is created equal. I'm obviously talking about cameras like the C200, cameras like the Blackmagic Ursa, cameras like the FX6. These are cameras that have a lot of the things that a mirrorless body would actually not have. And as much as the image quality on all cameras right now in 2021, from mirrorless to DSLR, they're all having amazing image quality. I remember the Canon 5D Mark II and being blown away at that camera. Things have really upgraded. So it really is a matter of, is it worth spending $6,000, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, all the thousands for the ergonomics and for the functionality of these cameras? Now, one of the things that's a deal breaker for me when it comes to a cinema camera is I love having built-in NDs in my camera. Before, I used to have to mess around with screw-on NDs. And there are certain times when that actually is not a problem. There are certain times when putting NDs in a matte box can totally work for you. For me, a lot of times I shoot run and gun. A lot of times I shoot documentary on lifestyle, or I shoot things that, let's say I'm doing commercial work and I don't have a lot of time. Messing around with ND filters is not my jam, and I don't want to do it. And I'm glad I don't need to do that with Canon's cinema cameras. Another thing that you might want to weigh out when you're using a camera like a Blackmagic Ursa or a Red camera or something like that, they are significantly heavier cameras than your mirrorless versions. And they're more often bigger because you are going to end up rigging out your cinema camera just like you probably would rig out your mirrorless, even if you want. And you're still going to have a way bigger package at the end of the day. So the size of a mirrorless body is going to always be something that is a big plus compared to a cinema camera. Now, the Canon C70 is smaller than most cinema cameras and it's really light. But at the same time, it's still bigger than a A6300 or A6400 or A7C. Like, these are still bigger cameras, and they do require a little bit more of a bigger tripod, bigger setup. So just keep that in mind. One of the reasons I would say upgrade to a cinema camera, if you can, is, and you guys are probably gonna all get mad at me at this, but perception. A lot of times when I would shoot with smaller mirrorless cameras, obviously if I was working with an agency, they pretty much always knew. It really wasn't the agencies that didn't know this, but a lot of times when you're trying to wow a independent client, or you're trying to wow a corporate client or something, they look at you with a little side eye when you show up with that little janky mirrorless camera. Now you might go, oh, it's the quality, it's the filmmaker, it's all that. I'm just saying, they look at you a little side eye. They go, well, I could have shot that. I have that camera. I got a camera that looks just like that. My son got a camera that looked like that. I think that's why everyone wants the red Komodo, is because it's still a red. I think it's not any more better than this camera, the Canon C200, but people like to say, hey, I have a red camera. So perception really matters. If you're going to go into cinema and higher budget projects, having a camera that looks a little bit more professional might help you. Now, if you think it won't help you, that's cool. If you think that it's not a big deal for you, that's fine. You can continue shooting with mirrorless. I shoot with mirrorless all the time. Just saying that perception is another reason that people might want to upgrade to a cinema camera. I mean, I know people that get hired just because they have a red. No one even knows how their work looks. They're just like, oh, you got a red? You're hired. When I was shooting the fashion video, one of the things I loved about having a cinema camera is, I think, reliability. I think just having a camera that has everything that I need inside of it, customizable buttons, extensive battery life, literally a screen that can flip out and swivel and all that. Like, I love that. I think when you're holding a camera like the Canon C70 or the Canon C200, having all this functionality compared to like a mirrorless camera, a lot of times when I shoot mirrorless, I always end up kind of like fighting with my rig. Even if I make it small enough, I always end up having to fight with it, whether it be with battery life, monitors, stuff like that. So I think having a cinema camera that has more of everything I need inside the body just makes shooting with it a breeze. When we were shooting this fashion video, we were literally running around downtown. I had a car. I was hanging out of the back of a car filming a Ferrari. I was running around downtown, shooting on subways. I was shooting in the studio, and we all did this in basically a whole day of just like shooting and planning and blocking out everything. So having a camera that I never had to worry about reliability wise, I think is a big plus. Image quality. Now, there used to be a time when cinema cameras versus a DSLR was a big deal. I felt like the image quality used to be just pretty much all cinema cameras had better image quality, and for the most part, Arri Alexa, stuff like that, red. However, a lot of the DSLR cameras on the market, the A7S III, the Canon R5, a lot of them are starting to have really amazing resolutions and high frame rates and good dynamic range. I would say normally you're gonna probably get more dynamic range and a better overall image resolution and quality with a cinema camera. It's not always the case. However, does that actually mean that you should upgrade to one? It really depends on your workflow. It depends on your clientele. It depends on your overall need. I think a lot of this comes down to your overall need. I think cinema cameras are amazing, but for your workflow, for your clientele, you really need to ask yourself, will this make me more money? Will this actually pay off in the long run? Do I really need this? And I think when you're trying to upgrade to a cinema camera, really be aware of that, because once you start getting into cinema cameras, you'll realize that it's very expensive, from the batteries to the memory cards to the rigging to the lenses. Everything starts to become really expensive. So just know that even though it might be a $6,000 camera like the Canon C70, I've already am like $10,000, maybe $11,000, $12,000 in deep with this camera. And I still have more stuff that I'm trying to do for it. So it's just something that you need to consider. If you have the money to upgrade, I would say definitely upgrade. Get a cinema camera. You won't be sorry about it. But if you're really strapped on cash, I think for the most clients, you should be okay with a DSLR, a mirrorless camera. And most clients at the end of the day are like, hey, it looks good. And that's pretty much all that matters. So that's all I have to say about should you upgrade to a cinema camera from a DSLR, from a mirrorless body. If you have any questions about cinematography or photography, let me know in the comments below, and I will see you next time. See you later.